Hi and welcome back. Today, or right now, we're going to be talking about the DESECAP.com website and how you actually start to use these forms. We're going to do a deep dive on the forms. So for this first step, we're going to really think about how to prepare for that first three-way meeting. At this point, you've done an initial orientation meeting with just your teacher candidate where you got him or her registered. You also ran an orientation meeting with the supervising practitioner and the teacher candidate to get the supervising practitioner registered, to get everything taken care of, to maybe even run that first pre-observation for your first announced observation. And you've given a calendar and a schedule, so then now what? Now we're going to be on the actual GUI, the interface that you're going to be working for, the portal. So I wanted you to be able to find the form. So here are students I've had in the past. I'm going to show you that we're going to click over on their name. So I'm in the far left column over here. I've got 3 students to choose from. I'm going to choose the 3rd student. Now remember that these are my past students. So anything that you're seeing in here has a lot of content below completed cycle steps. You, of course, just starting out will have everything under future cycle steps. And as you complete each different task, they'll migrate up to completed cycle steps. For our purposes today, we're going to look first at the announced observation number 1. So this will be over here for you. It will be under future cycle steps, and we're looking at view announced observation number 1. Again, this is to prepare for that first three-way meeting. So what I have for you are a blank form and a completed form. When you get to the announced observation number 1 form, you're going to start populating content. Now you've already done the observation, you've gone home and you've coded all of your notes to the 6 CAP elements that you're required to give feedback on. Each observation in this DESECAP process will have specific focus elements, and they'll be indicated by stars in the left margin of the form. I'm going to strongly suggest that you try and fill out every single observation you conduct for every single CAP element. The reason is all of your observation evidence, which is the narrative that you generate about particular CAP elements, will be used to craft the formative and the summative assessments. That's your only evidence to be able to actually rate your teacher candidates. So if you miss or you choose to skip any particular CAP elements on any given observation, you're going to get to that formative assessment and have a blank spot with no information. So I strongly suggest that you, the program supervisor, make an extra effort to code your notes from that observation to fill all 6 categories of the CAP elements. The supervising practitioner is required to do just the 1 or 2 different elements that are stipulated for each specific observation. So let's take a peek at the first announced observation. All the observation forms will look similar, other than it will tell you that it's the name of it. This is an additional observation, don't pay attention to that, but it will say announced observation number 1. So up here at the top we have the date of the observation, the start and end time, fill those in. And the content or topic or the lesson objective, you're going to fill that in as well. You'll click from this drop down to choose the group size. Now one of the dimensions of our elements is scope. And scope is addressing whether teacher candidates can successfully have high quality on different CAP elements with 1 student, 2 students, small group, whole group. So having variation within here is nice because then you can start to say, oh, I saw them do a really great job on adjustment to practice whole group, but I also saw them do a really great job in small group. So after this is filled out, you're going to see 3 boxes for each element. I'm going to scroll down the whole page so you can see, and let me just zoom in so you can see a little bit better. So what you see on the far left side is elements. These are the stock and standard 6 elements well-structured lessons. I'm going to scroll down. Adjustment to practice, meeting diverse needs, safe learning environment, high expectations, and reflective practice. This online form also includes a space for additional evidence, if there's anything you can think of that doesn't fall into those 6 categories. Then you will have reinforcement areas, which are areas of strength, where you'll summarize the major takeaways and highlights that you feel the teacher candidate has strengths on. Additionally, areas for improvement. This is really the salient takeaways. What do you really want the teacher candidate to focus on? After this whole form is done, you'll click Save Your Work. Let's jump up to the top though to see how you'll fill this in. So again, you filled out the top information about the lesson, and now you see for well-structured lessons, there are 3 boxes: program supervisor evidence, supervising practitioner evidence, and calibrated evidence for the teacher candidate. When you have finally completed the form, clicked Save Your Work, and there'll be a little button that will appear that says Complete, the teacher candidate will have access to some content on this page. The teacher candidate will have access only to the content that has been entered into the calibrated evidence for a teacher candidate. The teacher candidate will not be able to see this content up here. So you've conducted your observation, you've coded your notes according to the 6 CAP elements. I'm then going to suggest that you put that content in this box up here. However, I'm going to suggest that you be really cautious as you do that. If you have a power outage or something happens to your computer, you don't want to lose all of your content. So I'm going to suggest that you actually have all of your coded notes organized in a Word document, so that all you have to do is copy and paste the content into this supervising practitioner, program supervisor component. Now you can enter content in here, you can delete content in here, but you can do nothing to the content here because it's the supervising practitioner piece. So when the supervising practitioner, that classroom teacher, logs in on his or her end, he or she will be able to enter content in here and not edit anything you do up here. Either of you can edit the calibrated evidence. In my experience, what I found is I enter content in here, the supervising practitioner enters content in here, I read both of what we wrote, and then I come up with something that reflects both of what we were saying. I enter it in here, I then email the supervising practitioner and say, check out my notes here, see if you agree, if you have anything you'd like to change, let me know. Sometimes we've had a phone call about it, but in general we email about it. This is also where that chat window would come in. Remember, if you're going to use chat to discuss feedback before you've told the student about it, make sure that you're using the supervisor-only communication window. All right, now let's look at a form that's actually complete. So in this lesson, the lesson observation was conducted on November 21st of 2016. The start and end timer here was about an hour-long observation. Students will be able to define what a verb is and use it in a sentence. That was the student's learning outcome, and it was a whole group lesson. In this case, I entered content in here. The supervising practitioner did not choose to comment here. Well, can she do that? How does that work? You are required to provide feedback or evidence for categories that are bold and in a star. So each observation will have different requirements. I'm going to jump back to the blank form. No, I'll stay on this form actually. So I'm going to scroll down this, and I want you to look at the left margin right along here, where it says well-structured lessons. You'll notice that that's not in bold and has no star. So let me scroll down. Oh look, adjustment to practice is in bold and has a star. That means we have to provide feedback on that category, and oh look, the supervising practitioner provided feedback here. They're really busy, they might not have the opportunity to provide feedback on all the CAP elements, but you, the program supervisor, should really try and provide your own feedback. It's only going to help you out when you get to that formative and summative assessment. So let's jump back up here. In my feedback here, I organize it by commendations and recommendations. And I use TC to represent teacher candidate. I provide commendations and recommendations, and notice because the supervising practitioner didn't have any feedback, there was nothing to calibrate. So I just put in the calibrated evidence just what I had already written up here. So I just copied and pasted it down here. Now this works when I'm running an announced observation, because I can take my own feedback if the supervising practitioner didn't say anything. For unannounced observations, you, the program supervisor, are probably not present. So that means that the supervising practitioner is the only person entering content. Just to be aware, you cannot copy and paste their content down here. You'll need to retype it. It's just a little logistical issue. So let's look at the whole form. I've now got feedback that is available to the teacher candidate under well-structured lessons. Now I'm in adjustment to practice. The top section here was my feedback. Here's the supervising practitioner's feedback, again, because that was a required element. And this is the feedback that I wrote in as a combination of my views and the supervising practitioner's views. I often find that we're saying the same thing, sometimes even using the same words, but sometimes you'll find that the supervising practitioner may notice something you completely missed, or they may also have a very differing opinion. If you feel that you need to really hash this out and have a conversation, just pick up the phone and have a phone call or email with that teacher. You want this box, this calibrated evidence box for every single element to reflect the view of you and the supervising practitioner as much as possible. So let's continue down the form here. This again was a required measure. Note the asterisk and it's in bold. So we have my feedback, the supervising practitioner's feedback, and the calibrated evidence for the teacher candidate. Safe learning environment, not required. I made notes, supervising practitioner didn't, so I was able to just copy mine into the calibrated evidence. High expectations was the same situation. Reflective practice. Note that I wrote, we'll wait until we receive the reflection. So that reflection is the self-reflection that the teacher candidate, I have them, complete that. You'll find that in the pre-cycle of the Massachusetts CAP Guidelines website. That form I find to be really helpful. I send my students a digital copy, they fill it out in Word, and they send it back to me within 24 hours of their observation. That's really your only information source for this. So I generally don't have anything from the supervising practitioner on reflective practice. It's generally just me. Notice that I wrote, we'll wait for the reflection. I didn't bother changing that because down here in the calibrated evidence, I just entered in, after she sent it to me, I entered in my notes here. That's fine. Nobody sees this supervisor practitioner or the practice program supervisor content. People see this. So that's what you want to make sure is nice, polished, is, you know, you've got good spelling and all that jazz. This is really the only place that becomes more public. Now, what about stuff down here? I've never entered anything in here, but I imagine somebody will at some point. Additional evidence. So it's got the same options: program supervisor, supervising practitioner, and calibrated evidence for the teacher candidate. That's something additional. Focused feedback is where you really want to provide clear-cut, salient takeaways. So if you note here, you really want to try and have the supervising practitioner make sure that he or she fills this out. If you just read all of their feedback and try and pull out the points, in my experience, I have found that they tend to talk about different things here because they think, oh, what are the big takeaways? And what I mostly find is in all of the sections above, the supervising practitioners tend not to provide critical feedback. And it isn't until the section down here at the bottom where it says areas for improvement, this tends to be, in my experience, the main place where classroom teachers, the supervising practitioners, provide actual critical feedback. Otherwise, it's all very positive. And not in every single case, but that happens a lot. So in this case, you'll notice that I did not fill out my program supervisor evidence. That was fine. I read what the supervising practitioner had written. I knew what I had in my own notes. And so I was able to generate the calibrated evidence for the teacher candidate right here based on what the supervising practitioner had written and also my own feedback. So no, again, to emphasize this, nobody sees this other than you and the supervising practitioner. So in some cases I don't bother filling it out because I'm going to be filling out the calibrated as well. Now, you have to fill out the categories that are bold and italic, bold with a star, and you have to fill out everything in this focused feedback section. See how it says focused feedback? This is your strengths and areas of growth below. Once you've filled out all of that, these options will appear at the bottom of the page. It says, please check this box if the observation is complete, and also save your work. No matter what you do, keep popping down to the bottom of the page and keep hitting save your work. Even if you're saving your work and you're in Internet Explorer, you're out of luck. It won't save your work. So just do yourself a favor and use Google Chrome or Safari, Mozilla Firefox, or another sort of web interface. Don't use Internet Explorer because you'll hit the save and everything will go away. But you want to make sure that you're saving your work as you go. And again, I strongly suggest you actually write everything in Word and just cut and paste into this document as you go. When you filled out the required components of the form, the complete box will appear. Check the complete box, click on Save Your Work, and contact the teacher, the supervising practitioner, in whatever way you found works for you, whether it's phone call or email, and say, please review the form, go to the bottom if you're satisfied, click Complete and Save Your Work, and let me know. At that point, the teacher candidate should have access to the form. The form should be done. And if you recall, back on this page, you'll have the form you were just working on migrate from future cycle steps up to completed cycle steps. But it won't migrate until everybody has clicked complete and save your work.